The team sweepstakes having concluded with that boys race, we'll move now to the girls individual race and close out the sweepstakes action with the boys individual. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow for, well, plenty of action for all of the races, but the sweepstakes races to take place for Divisions 1 and 2. Well, it looks like the nod will go to University here at San Fran, but boy, a very, very close margin. We saw a single-point victory on the girls' side last year. Could it be just a 2 or 3 point victory here for University out of San Fran? Well, we turn our attention now back to the girls as they are off and running on their individual sweepstakes race. As we mentioned, Ayana Hickey of the Bishop School took victory last year and would love to make that a repeat win. I think it would make it 2 wins for La Jolla Schools as well after Kiara Daly's victory for La Jolla High, the Bishop School right there. Beautiful campus, beautiful location in lovely La Jolla. If you're not familiar with San Diego, a lot of great cross country down there as well, of course. Balboa Park, of course, playing host to so many great meets over the years. And a number of other courses throughout the county. Again, I'm a bit biased as a San Diego native, but beautiful area all around and great weather for running, able to train year-round here in Southern California. But Ayana Hickey heading to UCLA. She'll stay in Southern California for her collegiate career. Bunch running here, so we won't see a dominant first mile, let's put it that way. Ayana Hickey ran 17:56, just right there, down to the second with Gabriella Peters of Sage Creek. Sage Creek taking the team side of things in this individual race, still scoring it out. Monrovia, Moore Park rounding out the top 3. Isla Terrell of Monrovia was third in this race in 18 flat. So a couple athletes under that 18-minute mark. Again, just such a challenging course. And just under 3 minutes into this one, we'll get a look at our leaders here. We'll try to get a peek at that course tracker as well, but not much going on in the early goings of it. Insofar as the Valley Loops keep things pretty flat. And you can kind of peek over there into some of the throws area as well. We'll continue to laud this great Mount SAC facility from the track itself, the stands. I had the opportunity to do some broadcasting there as well, and their media section and announcers booth are top-notch up there in the stands. They've done a great job with that remodel from a couple of years ago, but so too the entire layout with this Valley Loop that loops around the throws area, kind of a dedicated throws area outside of the stadium. Also a great warm-up track and field there as well for the Mounties that they get to use week in and week out. But for these athletes, this is a big, big one in the Southern California running calendar. 4 or 5 athletes continue to lead here, maybe make it 6 or 7, in fact, with just a couple of meters lead on the rest of the field. Taylor, big gambler out of Arizona. You've been talking a lot about the California schools and Southern California schools, rightly so. Of course, University out of San Fran made their mark certainly as well for NorCal, but get some regional teams, some Arizona teams that come over to take advantage of this great weather and good hard challenge here as our lead pack gets ready to take on this first hill. You see our course tracker as they complete the Valley Loops and get ready to come up on that first mile. And through the valley loop, we start to hit the hill now. You see this topographical map, one of my favorite features here on runnerspace, and the athletic course tracker that gives you a great visualization of how challenging this course is and where we are. We saw it from Ollie O'Connor. He made his big move on the downhill off of this first hill. So you see them curving away back into those switchbacks from the warm-up track. And back and forth, a lot of elevation gain. So very, very hard work here for our leaders. And it is low gear time for these runners. Will it be the uphill that gives us some separation? Will it be the downhill move like we saw from Ollie O'Connor, our eventual winner on the boys' side? Still much too close to call from that first lead pack. But Anna Villavicencio of Woodlake, Ari Yorens of Francis Parker, another school right there in San Diego. Harper Diaz out of Santana, a little bit further east there in Santee. Elliana Patterson as well, Gretchen Yakaitis. So a number of athletes, as you can see, our leaders still working hard up this hill. This camera angle gives you a good look at how hard these athletes are working. Coming up that final bit of our first hill, our leaders now starting to go down the hill on the backside. Big Bear got a couple of points, or 1 point I should say, coming through that first mile over Point Loma. Point Loma and Big Bear, Monrovia is in the mix there early on. That first mile doesn't always tell the full story, as you saw on the topographical map. Pretty flat there until they start to push on that hill. So it gives you a little bit of a view, of the positioning, but doesn't tell the full story of this challenging course here. You can see the higher totals there as well. Point Loma, Nicole Witt was their first one coming through that 1 mile at 5:45. They're in 19th, but our leaders coming through the low 5:30s, 5:32, 5:33 for that lead pack. Harper Diaz, as I said, of Santana was running well. Elliana Patterson, Christian High there in El Cajon, your esteemed announcer's alma mater, in fact. Anna Villavicencio of Woodlake came through that first mile portion in 5:32, leading the way. A reminder, last year's champion Ayana Hickey, 17:56. And now, as we saw on the boys' side, a little bit of separation here from our top three. On the boys' side, we saw Ollie O'Connor pull away. It was just him. But on the girls' side, three athletes continuing to run very, very closely together. That's Ari Lawrence of Francis Parker. So a little bit of a reprieve. You can see a couple of breaths coming for these runners as they come down that downhill. They worked very hard on the uphill. They get a bit of a reprieve before a slight uphill. And then a little bit more flat running you can see before that final big hill. Reservoir Hill really tests the mettle of these athletes, and that's where we're going to perhaps see our leaders break up a little bit. Not much separation from those top three. We'll get that 2-mile mark coming up shortly as well, but Ari Lawrence was looking very, very confident for Francis Parker. Lawrence, a great story overall. Had to sit out the track season last year with an illness, but came back very, very strong and representing for her school, for San Diego as well. Has run well, as I mentioned, at that Balboa Park course that we've seen so many times. Ari Lawrence has run a number of races this year, finished first at the River Park Invite here in San Diego, the Grit and Grind XC Challenge, the Sun Devil XC Invitational as well. Second in the Coastal Cluster. Also ran that personal best of 16:58 at that 4th annual Grit and Grind Challenge. Took place about a month ago there in San Marcos. Now getting ready for Reservoir Hill as Lawrence continues to lead, but Elliana Patterson of Christian High is giving her no quarter. Gretchen Yakaitis of Carlinet is right there, and it is still our top three. You can see Yakaitis in the white over red, Patterson for Christian High there in second. Ari Lawrence, I won't say quite in control necessarily, but at least in the lead coming through as she heads into Reservoir Hill and leads our challengers. Well, through the 2-mile, as I said, Elliana Patterson and Gretchen Yakaitis hanging right there with Ari Lawrence, all of them coming through at about 11:38, 6:05 for that second mile. And it is a challenging mile, so if you're noticing a difference between the first mile split, for them it was 5:32, 5:33, and then 6:05. Big difference, 30 seconds or so split difference from the first mile to the second. Of course, it's because of those challenging hills. Well, now Yakaitis starting to fade, but Ari Lawrence of Francis Parker and Elliana Patterson of Christian High running right there on this hill. I always love to see the looks on the faces. Some athletes, we saw the dichotomy there. Lawrence, eyes up, working hard, pumping the arms. And for Patterson, it was the other view. Eyes down, one step at a time, grinding it out. And Santana's Harper Diaz right there as well. Still running fourth. Diaz, another one who's come on pretty strong for the Sultans of Santana. She's got pretty good speed on the track as well. 2:11 over 800 meters. You wonder how much that comes into play after a grueling set of hills like we have here at Mount SAC. But don't be surprised to see a strong finish from Harper Diaz in the purple there of Santana. She was fifth in this race a year ago, was Diaz. But the battle out in front, and we get a look at them once again as they'll cruise around here, start turning the corner, run past that start line as we've seen a couple of times, and then turn the corner into the gauntlet. Well, it's been pretty dominating wins so far this afternoon from Kiara Daly and then Ollie O'Connor He made his move a little later, but it was still a very, very significant margin of victory. But now we have a duel on our hands. This is Patterson and our once and current leader, Ari Lawrence of Francis Parker. Those two schools know each other well. In the small school, private school division there in San Diego, play each other across all sports, see each other in the individual sports here as well. Kind of on opposite ends of the county, if you will. Christian High out there in El Cajon, Francis Parker, well, a little closer to the coast. So the two San Diego natives going step for step here. Private schools representing Christian High and Francis Parker. Lawrence of Francis Parker was leading, but now Elliana Patterson of Christian High making her move through the gauntlet here. There is still plenty of running left to do, 400 meters or so, but look at that gap. Elliana Patterson pouring it on as she was so patient here. What is 25 meters now as Lawrence seems to be broken. Patterson opening up her stride even more. Elliana Patterson, very impressive run here. Just a junior. Had a good season on the track a year ago. I say a year ago, last season, how about that? In the spring of this year by the calendar, but the previous track season as a 10th grader, now a junior here, Elliana Patterson. For the Patriots of Christian High, she will come around this final bend here at Hilmer Lodge Stadium to take victory in the individual sweepstakes race for the D3, 4, and 5 girls. Elliana Patterson, determination on her face. She is going to take the tape. Is it a grimace? Is it a smile? It'll be a smile eventually, and there it is as she crosses her arms, crosses the finish line, I should say, arms wide open in victory. Lawrence, a solid finish there for second. Patterson has run sub 17 over 3 miles before. On this challenging course, a very respectable time of 17:22. Lawrence 17:32 for second. Gretchen Yukaitis hangs on there for third. And a good run from Harper Diaz as well for the Sultans of Santana. That's Hannah Norse coming in for fifth for Laguna Hills, and Lindsay Ballot of Classical Academy High School there in the white. So Elliana Patterson, the junior, takes victory for Christian High. It was a very, very good battle between those two till the final, half mile, maybe less than that? 600-700 meters perhaps coming into that gauntlet. Elliana Patterson really just broke it open, and it ended up being a 10-second margin of victory over Ari Lawrence of Francis Parker, but they will certainly be seeing each other again. So fun to see these athletes, really at whatever stage of their career they're at. You know, we talk about some of the younger athletes and the ups and downs just that this sport really provides, and you know, sometimes it's the athletes that run well from a young age, and we always love seeing that, certainly, and are so impressed by some of the youngsters that are running fast times early on. Sometimes an athlete takes a little longer to develop, but whether it's high school, college, the youth ranks, whatever it is, we love a good back and forth and a good duel there. Again, I love seeing them finish on the track. That's always a lot of fun, which they do for the marathons. They'll do that for the race walk sometimes as well. We haven't gotten up at 3 a.m. and watched a race walk at a championship on the other side of the world. You have not lived. Well, through the 2-mile split. We saw Point Loma with a little bit of a lead over Big Bear. Mission Viejo was in the mix there as well as Monrovia. But can Point Loma get this done? Pointers of Point Loma duking it out with Big Bear here. 4 athletes through for each of them. And once again, not always the first team with 5 through, but certainly when you're getting down to the bigger points like this, it really starts to help. Monrovia now with 4 through. For Big Bear, good grouping down there in the high 20s, I should say. Abby Sweeney in 27th, Maddie Kagi, and Azira Kamara in 29th and 30th. Julia Jockin in 34th. But for Point Loma, that, of course, will not be their final score. There we go. But Point Loma, really, really good showing for them as well. Nicole Witt, who we mentioned earlier, coming through in 15th. Sarah Geisler in 20th. Paige Udy in 24th. Corinne Santoro in 32nd. Zoe Bowes and Coral Cameron in 41st and 42nd. So will that be enough to take down Big Bear and Mission Viejo? Give them credit where it is due. Quinn Turner finishing top 10 there in 10th. Time of 18:25 for Mission Viejo. Liliana Perez in 22nd. Olivia Heiss in 31st. Alexandra Balo in 47th. Caitlin Wynn in 50th. So we'll see those scores be adjusted, as we said. Keep an eye on that. I think we can say that Point Loma is going to take the victory. It will be a higher score than that, certainly. We'll get that all retallied. But no time to rest as we move immediately now to our next race here. This will be the boys individual sweepstakes race and our final race of day number. We're at the 77th running of this Mount SAC Cross Country Invitational here in Walnut, California. Mount San Antonio College playing host, as always. I'm Trevor Fulkerson. You're watching live here on runnerspace. And so much great cross-country action live on runnerspace.com. If you're not a subscriber, we don't even have time for a commercial. This will be my commercial. Make sure you're signed up if you're not already. So much great action throughout the cross-country season, from coast to coast, everywhere in between, into the postseason, and, of course, into the track season as well. Boy, it just feels like it never stops. It seems like it's so far away, then all of a sudden you look up, it's cross country, it's the postseason, it's the early season indoor track meets, and then right into the indoor season. So it really is a year-round sport. One of the things I'm always so impressed with these athletes is the ability to time out the year. Credit to the coaches as well, of course, but training hard. You have your breaks, you have your off time, your easy miles, I suppose, but coaches really have to pay attention, especially in this day and age where everything is so hyper-focused. I'm still a big fan, of athletes getting a chance, especially at the high school level, before specializing to do different sports. And, there's some athletes here that are just running cross-country. They're getting in shape. They're maybe perhaps in their first competitive environment or team sports, and cross-country is such a true team sport, even more so than track and field, or at least it's a little more apparent. Let's put it that way. But the team battle we saw from the team sweepstakes side, and again, we give credit to the team winners as well on the individual side. But as I said, this is the final sweepstakes race here, Division 3, 4, and 5 on day number 1. We'll be back for Division 1 and 2 races tomorrow morning. And nothing to choose between our leaders here early on. So an even bigger pack we saw on the girls' side of things. We were, maybe 6 or 7 athletes out in front with at least a little bit of separation, but I'm not calling this one being strung out just yet. 2, 4, 6. I mean, really, there's no separation here. And as we come through, those valley loops will come up on our 1 mile marker, of course, to give us an idea of where things are at. But for this final sweepstakes race of day number 1, I always like to give a little bit of perspective. And from last year's championship, or sweepstakes race, I should say, for the D3, 4, and 5 on the individual side of things, it was Zion Ortiz of Burroughs who took victory in 15:03. Very, very respectable time on this challenging course. Oliver Clippinger Zimmerman was right behind for Thousand Oaks in 15:10, with Burroughs taking the overall team title here, just ahead of Sage Creek and Moore Park. Just 5 points separated those two teams, Burroughs and Sage Creek, 102 to 107. So past is not always prologue, certainly, but it gives us a little bit more perspective. And, you know, the other thing is, if you're used to historically the course where we had Poop Out Hill and a number of similarities to this course, certainly, but differences as well. So we've made some adjustments the last couple of years. You know, you might not be quite as familiar with the times on this course. So we're still getting to know what, you know, a 15:03 or a 15:10 means on this course. Certainly something sub 15, very, very impressive. I mentioned last year's overall fastest, which means, of course, the course record. This is a great view of those switchbacks. But Trey Caldwell of De La Salle last year ran 14:46, and so that remains for now the course record. Good run from Ollie O'Connor earlier to go sub 14:50 as well. But look at those switchbacks, back and forth and on the uphill, as our leaders still just within a couple seconds of each other. Kiefer Wilcox, Tahoe Truckee, 4:47, but he is right there with Maury Young of Ocean View, Andres Lomelli of Kimball, Darren Spragno of Santa Margarita, Jonah Vasquez of Cathedral, Lucas Welty of Healdsburg, Orrin Hill of Thousand Oaks, Cole Johnson of South Torrance. 8 guys under 450 on that first full mile, as they are on the downhill side now of that first challenging hill. 8 guys under 450, 4:47 for Kiefer Wilcox to lead the way. You love hills, Coach says. I like